Blessings, everyone. We're here from the Global Majority Versus campaign, and we're forced to be here today to make some awareness around political prisoners and the state of the situation that we're all finding ourselves in. Because to be honest, we're all catching ourselves lacking, and we need to actually make a big step and a move on in terms of building our sovereignty and our people's power for reparatory justice. So we're going to open today by contextualizing what we define a political prisoner to be, and what that means to us as African heritage peoples, as people who are caught up in an anti-colonial national liberation struggle for our people's sovereignty and power. And so we'll open with the voice of the Stop the Mangamizi campaign, who is sharing information on what we mean by a political prisoner.
This is Esther Stanford Kosei, and I'm the Coordinator General of the Stop the Mangamizi We Charge Genocide Ecocide campaign. I'm truly honoured to be opening this historic press conference organised by youth leaders of the Global Majority Versus campaign and young people from communities of resistance all over the world who are taking up this fight to free all political prisoners in response to the continuing Mangamizi and its manifestations, such as the criminalisation and incarceration in various forms of our people, particularly our leading freedom fighters of all generations. From the catchers of enslaved persons who went after our ancestors, who refused to surrender themselves to chattel enslavement, to those who refused to accept the direct colonial misrule of our people by European powers, and also those continuing in their footsteps as we confront the Mangamizi of neo-colonialism, both on our mother continent, Africa, and in the diaspora. Also those today confronting the Mangamizi of neo-colonialism, but also recognizing that this Mangamizi is being compounded more glaringly with ecocide as the threat of eco-fascism looms larger. Now, our young people are also waking up to this realization. Unlike previous generations who have suffered genocide and ecocide, they know that this time around there is a real threat of losing the planet, so that they may not even have anything to inherit from Mother Earth. This is a serious situation that is not just a matter of physical suffering, but one of mental anguish and psychological trauma. Therefore, it is no surprise to us that one of the leading co-founding members of the Global Majority Versus campaign, Sister Ade, would have such mental health distress as to demand that we pay attention to the mental health issues that are increasing manifestations of the Mangamizi in our communities. As our elders, such as Frantz Fanon, taught us, we need to go to the heart of the matter. Increasing mental health distress is part and parcel of the Mangamizi, of colonialism, of neo-colonialism, and of coloniality. So it follows that without tackling the root causes of the Mangamizi, and therefore fighting to secure our national liberation, to free ourselves from foreign domination, their mental distress cannot be alleviated and eradicated on its own as an isolated phenomenon. We need to understand that the misuse of our minds by oppressors, as Steve Biko also taught us, that the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the minds of the oppressed. Now, this is something that we have been experiencing systematically since the beginning of the imposition of the Mangamizi. Our refusal to submit to the captivity of chattel enslavement was deemed a mental illness, classified as drapetomania by the physician Samuel A. Cartwright in 1851. Similarly, our people's refusal to submit to neo-colonialism is also being treated as a mental health issue. especially those refusing to surrender to the neo-colonialism inherent in the worldwide climate and ecological crisis. So it is in recognition of all of this that we launched in our predecessor formations, such as the Pan-African Reparations Coalition in Europe, working to form a wider cross-community movement known as the Rendezvous of Victory, that we developed the Operation Justice Eternal campaign. Now, this was a particular operation that we launched in 2007, which was the British Parliamentary Abolition of the Slave Trade Act bicentenary. And we did so to ensure that reparatory justice was effected and secured, not only in terms of money and compensation, but also in recognition that the expression of resistance to chattel enslavement by all of our people who rebelled in uprisings or other forms of resistance as legitimate actions in defense of their human, peoples and Mother Earth rights, and that their criminalization in response to that resistance was itself criminal, and therefore they needed to be restored in terms of their dignity and acceptance in the annals of our story, that they were acting justly in resistance. And furthermore, that those who were criminalized and eliminated in genocidal acts of oppression by their oppressors, that such oppressors were the real violators and wrongdoers. We were also seeking to ensure that in the statute books of the British Empire, as well as all those of all other European imperial and enslaving forces responsible for these criminal atrocities, that such freedom fighters needed to be decriminalized and restored correctly to places of glory, such as what we refer to as posthumous glorification. This applies to all our freedom fighters who are still languishing in all forms of incarceration today. So we in the Stop the Mangamizi, We Charge Genocide Ecocide campaign commend the Global Majority Versus campaigners' response to the situation of Sister Ade by putting her case within the context of the heating up battles for freedom going on across the world to free all political prisoners and all others incarcerated by systems of oppression, particularly those of the colonial prison industrial complex, maintained not just in the metropolitan areas of global racial capitalism in the global north, but also our misleaders in the global south and other parts of the diaspora that maintain these systems of oppression. So all of these people resisting must be seen as political prisoners, and we, the people, must heighten our organizational work to set them all free. We should be clear that only we can set ourselves free. These are the giants upon whose shoulders we stand. These are the ones that have stood up in the past and continue to do so today. These are the people who have volunteered themselves to be at the forefront of our battles for liberation. And we must understand now more than ever that our demand for reparatory justice means that we must effect and secure holistic reparatory justice with actions that will set our leading freedom fighters free. It is through those kinds of initial actions that we can prove to ourselves that not only are we our own liberators, but we are also the ones that we have been waiting for. And we are the ones who have the power to effect and secure holistic reparatory justice on our own terms. This is what being the reparatory justice change also means. We do have the power to set all of our political prisoners free. One way that we can begin taking acts in contributing towards this is recognizing all the crime scenes of the Maangamizi and heightening our efforts to stop the continuing crimes of the Maangamizi through shutting down various Maangamizi crime scenes. So, if we say schools are sites of Eurocentric colonial miseducation, then we must shut them down and effect change by introducing new ways of learning and teaching, of acquiring and disseminating knowledge and information. If we are concerned with sites of mineral extraction and extractivism from the bowels of our Mother Earth, that is furthering not only the genocide but also ecocide, then we must shut down these Maangamizi crime scenes, such as the mines, and begin rehabilitation and restoration of our Mother Earth and greening of these sites of Maangamizi crime scenes. If we say that churches and mosques are desecrating African and other indigenous forms of spirituality, then we must shut down those actions, those practices, those institutions that continue to desecrate our humanity. If we are concerned with the psychiatric institutions as being places of spirit murder and mental incarceration, then we have to shut down these institutions and provide the alternatives, the culturally safe institutions of rehabilitation, of care and support that our people need. Similarly, in the cases where we are complicit in the violation of our own bodies, we have to stop that terrorism that occurs in the name of false notions of beauty. We have to stop the self-hating behaviors such as skin bleaching, seeking to obtain alteration to our bodies and our body parts by way of so-called cosmetic surgeries, wearing hair that has been taken from other women, themselves locked into systems of impoverishment and destitution, and stop wearing these self-debasing weaves. It is when we are doing these things, such as allowing the harm to be done to us and simply making demands for monetary compensation to be paid, but yet leaving ourselves exposed and vulnerable to the system and its agents who operate both within and external to our communities. We leave ourselves open to receiving the same crap that inflicts us with menticide. This call to free political prisoners must also be understood as a call to free ourselves from the mental captivity and the actions that we continue to take on our own to reinforce our mental enslavement. If the mind of the oppressed is a weapon in the hands of the oppressor, which it becomes, then the first act in freeing political prisoners in the way that the Global Majority Versus campaign will elaborate on is then to free your mind, to free our collective minds. We must not just look at what the enemy defines as crimes and conform to their narrative. We must not see our situation and therefore see our struggle for repair and holistic reparations through the lenses of those who are continually seeking to incarcerate us. Because if we do that, then what we may be demanding may actually reinforce the forms of white supremacy, racial capitalism, and other forms of the maangamizi that we are in the process of ending today. I thank you for listening to me. This is Esther Stanford Kosei of the Stop the Maangamizi We Charge Genocide Ecocide campaign.